Okay, let's go. Number 1, the Baghdad Battery. You're standing in the ruins of Kujat Rabu just outside Baghdad. The year is 1936. You're Wilhelm Koenig, a German archaeologist, and you've just brushed dirt from a clay jar. It's 13 centimeters tall, terracotta, unremarkable except for what's inside. You've discovered a battery. The problem, electricity won't be officially discovered for another 2,000 years. The artifact sat in the Baghdad Museum basement for years, labeled as a curiosity. Then in the 1940s, General Electric engineers heard about Koenig's find. They built exact replicas using the same materials: terracotta jar, copper cylinder, iron rod, asphalt seal. They filled it with vinegar. The replicas produced 1.1 to 2 volts of electricity. Archaeologists looked closer at other artifacts from the same site, the same time period. They found jewelry, silver objects with thin gold plating, precision electroplating that requires electrical current. The artifacts were dated to 250 BCE, the Parthian period. Multiple dating methods confirmed it. The mainstream explanation is straightforward: religious artifact, they argue, or scroll storage. The copper and iron components are coincidental. Ancient peoples didn't understand electricity, but the acid residue inside tells a different story. Chemical analysis confirmed it. The copper shows corrosion patterns consistent with acidic electrolyte exposure. The design is a textbook galvanic cell, 2 dissimilar metals, an electrolyte solution, an insulated container. And those electroplated artifacts exist. They required electrical current to create. The Baghdad Battery sits in the National Museum of Iraq. Or it did. During the 2003 looting, it disappeared, but the replicas still work. Anyone can build one. General Electric engineers confirmed it in the 1940s. The voltage output is consistent, measurable, real. If the Parthians had batteries in 250 BCE, what else did they have? What other technologies existed that official history claims were impossible? And why does mainstream archaeology refuse to revise the timeline when the physical evidence produces measurable voltage? The Baghdad Battery wasn't unique. In Egypt, another artifact would prove ancient civilizations possessed precision that modern engineers struggle to replicate. Number 2, the Saqqara bird. You're cataloging artifacts in the Egyptian Museum, Cairo. The year is 1898. In your hands is a small wooden object carved from sycamore, pulled from a tomb in Saqqara. It's 18 centimeters long with a 14-centimeter wingspan. You label it wooden bird figurine and place it in storage. For the next 71 years, it will sit in a drawer, ignored. The problem, it's not a bird. It's an aerodynamic glider, and it's 2,200 years old. The artifact was dated to 200 BCE based on tomb context and surrounding artifacts. Standard dating methods confirmed the same period. The wood had aged appropriately. The carving techniques matched other Ptolemaic artifacts. It was authentic, just misunderstood. In 1969, Dr. Khalil Messiha changed everything. He wasn't an archaeologist. He was an aviation expert who happened to visit the museum. When he saw the Saqqara bird, he saw a scale model of a glider. The wings had a dihedral angle, the upward tilt that provides lateral stability. The tail was vertical, a stabilizer, the same configuration used in modern aircraft. Messiha built scale models. They flew. Stable, controlled gliding flight. Wind tunnel tests by aviation engineers confirmed the aerodynamic efficiency. This wasn't a lucky accident of carving. This was deliberate aeronautical design. The Egyptian Antiquities Authority took notice. In 1972, they created a special exhibit, Aviation in Ancient Egypt. The Saqqara bird was displayed alongside Messiha's analysis and the successful flight tests. Then, quietly, the exhibit closed. The artifact went back into storage. No explanation, just silence. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The object is a toy, they argue, or a weather vane. The vertical tail is artistic choice, not engineering. The successful flight tests prove nothing about ancient intent, but no other ancient Egyptian toy shows this level of precision. Religious bird figurines from the same period have horizontal tails, like actual birds. The Saqqara bird is different. The dihedral wing angle serves no decorative purpose. It's an engineering solution. The vertical stabilizer doesn't exist in nature. No bird has one. The artifact currently sits in the Egyptian Museum's storage facility, not on display. Aviation engineers who've examined it agree on the aerodynamic sophistication. The measurements are documented. The flight tests are repeatable. Why did ancient Egyptians need glider models? What were they testing? And why did the museum open an exhibit acknowledging the impossible, then quietly close it? From Egypt to South America, where a golden artifact would reveal knowledge that shouldn't exist for another 1,500 years. Number 3, the Quimbaya airplanes. You're excavating a pre-Columbian tomb in the mountains of Colombia. Gold figurines, dozens of them, each about 5 centimeters long. They're labeled as zoomorphic figures, stylized animals. But you're holding one right now, and it doesn't look like any animal that's ever existed. Swept back wings, vertical stabilizer. The Quimbaya culture made these around 1000 CE. The artifacts were discovered across multiple Quimbaya sites and dated through contextual archaeology. Pottery analysis, burial practices, surrounding artifacts all confirmed the same period. The gold showed no signs of modern working. These weren't forgeries. They were authentic Quimbaya artifacts from approximately 1000 CE. In the 1990s, the Aeronautical Institute of Stuttgart in Germany built scale models at 16:1 ratio. Exact replicas of the gold artifacts. They added small engines and tested them. The models flew. Not just flew, they performed. Stable at high speeds, capable of loops, rolls, controlled maneuvers. The delta wing configuration provided the same aerodynamic advantages it provides in modern aircraft like the Concorde or F-16. The design features are unmistakable. The wings sweep back at approximately 45 degrees, optimal for delta wing aircraft. The vertical stabilizer sits at the rear, exactly where it needs to be for directional control. The body has a streamlined fuselage shape with what appears to be a cockpit area. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. These are stylized insects, they argue, or birds. Ancient peoples created zoomorphic art representing the natural world. The resemblance to modern aircraft is coincidence, but no insect has delta wings. No bird has a vertical stabilizer. No fish has a fuselage-like body with swept-back wings and a tail fin in that configuration. The German engineers who tested the replicas were professional aeronautical researchers. Their conclusion was documented: the configurations are aerodynamically sound for high-speed flight. The artifacts sit in the Gold Museum in Bogota, displayed as zoomorphic figures. The museum maintains the official interpretation: religious symbols, stylized animals, not aircraft models, 3 civilizations. The Saqqara bird in Egypt, the Quimbaya airplanes in South America. But in Turkey, an artifact would reveal something even more impossible. A map of the world drawn from a perspective that wouldn't exist until satellite photography. Number 4, the Piri Reis map. You're sitting in a lamplit room in Constantinople, 1513. The Bosphorus gleams outside your window. You're Admiral Piri Reis of the Ottoman Imperial Navy, and before you lies a piece of gazelle skin parchment. You've just finished drawing coastlines: South America, West Africa, Antarctica. The problem: you're drawing from a bird's eye view as if seen from high altitude. This perspective won't exist until satellite photography in 1960, 447 years from now. The map was discovered in 1929 during renovations at Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. German theologian Gustav Adolf Diesmann found it rolled in the archives, dated to 1513 CE, signed by Piri Reis. He left notes explaining he'd compiled it from approximately 20 source charts, some dating back to Alexander the Great. In 1960, the United States Air Force became involved. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer, a cartographer with the Air Force, compared the map to modern data. His analysis was documented in an official letter. The Antarctic portion showed coastline features that matched seismic surveys with remarkable accuracy. The projection appeared to be drawn from approximately 5,000 miles above Cairo. An aerial perspective. They found a correlation coefficient of 0.98 between the Piri Reis Antarctica and modern surveys, nearly perfect. The longitude accuracy was equally baffling. South American coastlines were positioned with precision that European cartographers wouldn't achieve until the 18th century, after the marine chronometer solved the longitude problem in 1761. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The Antarctic portion is actually the South American coast distorted and extended southward. Piri Reis was copying Portuguese and Spanish charts. The resemblance to Antarctica is coincidence, but the geometry doesn't support this. When projected using period-appropriate mathematics, the coastline's orientation doesn't match South America. The proportions are correct for high-altitude observation. The 1960 Air Force analysis wasn't conducted by fringe theorists. These were military cartographers with security clearances. They had no ideological reason to validate alternative history. They were reporting what the data showed. How did Piri Reis achieve a satellite perspective 447 years before satellites? Where are the 20 ancient source maps he claimed to use? Why did U.S. military analysts conclude they had no idea how this was possible? A map from space. But in Iraq, an artifact would prove empires deliberately hid evidence of advanced ancient astronomy. Number 5, the Antikythera mechanism. You're a Greek sponge diver working the waters off Antikythera Island in 1901. Your crew has just discovered a Roman shipwreck filled with bronze statues and artifacts. Among the treasures, you pull up a corroded lump of bronze and wood. It looks like a rock. The archaeologists catalog it and send it to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. It sits in storage for the next 73 years. The problem? No one bothered to look inside. In 1974, when someone finally does, they discover 30 precision-cut bronze gears. It's an analog computer from 100 BCE. The shipwreck was dated through standard archaeological methods. Pottery analysis, coin dating, statue styles. Everything pointed to approximately 70 BCE for the sinking. The mechanism itself was dated to around 100 BCE based on construction techniques and astronomical data encoded in its gears. Derek de Sala Price, a Yale professor, was the first to seriously examine the mechanism in 1974. He used X-ray imaging to see through the corrosion. What he found was impossible. A complex system of bronze gears, precisely cut, interconnected in ways that wouldn't be seen again until medieval astronomical clocks 1,400 years later. The mechanism calculated the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. It predicted eclipses. It tracked the Olympic Games cycle. The precision was staggering. The gears were cut to tolerances of approximately 1 millimeter. The mechanism used differential gearing, a technique that wasn't reinvented in Europe until the 1700s. The device had at least 37 gears, possibly as many as 72 originally. In 2005, the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project used CT scanning technology to examine the device in unprecedented detail. They found inscriptions, operating instructions. The ancient Greeks had written a user manual directly onto the mechanism. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The mechanism represents Greek genius, they argue, a singular achievement by an unknown craftsman. The Greeks understood astronomy and mathematics. This device demonstrates they could apply that knowledge mechanically, but precision gearing requires machine tools. You can't hand-cut gears to 1 millimeter tolerance without specialized equipment. The differential gearing system suggests a sophisticated manufacturing tradition, not a one-off experiment. And the operating instructions imply these devices were produced for users who needed guidance. The mechanism sat in museum storage from 1902 to 1974. 73 years. Catalogued as corroded bronze fragments. No one examined it closely. When Price finally revealed its complexity, the archaeological community was shocked. But they didn't launch searches for similar devices. They didn't re-examine other corroded bronze lumps in storage. How many other artifacts sit in museum basements catalogued as unidentified fragments, never examined with modern technology? Why did it take 73 years for someone to look inside this one? If the Greeks could build analog computers in 100 BCE, what else did they build that's been dismissed or lost? Ignored for 75 years, but in China, an artifact was deliberately destroyed when it revealed too much. Number 6. The Dropa stones. Your Kaipu Te, a Chinese archaeologist exploring cave systems in the Bayanhar Mountains near the Tibetan border. The year is 1938. Your team has just discovered something extraordinary. 716 stone discs, each about 30 centimeters in diameter, stacked in neat rows along the cave walls. They're made of granite, hard stone, difficult to carve. Each disc has a perfectly circular hole in the center and spiral grooves running from the center to the edge, like a phonograph record. But these aren't decorative. When you look closer, you see the grooves contain tiny hieroglyphic inscriptions. The geological context of the cave suggests these discs are at least 10,000 years old. The discs were cataloged and sent to Beijing University for analysis. For 24 years, they sat in storage. Then in 1962, Professor Tsum Nui began a detailed study. He spent years deciphering the inscriptions, cross-referencing symbols, building a translation framework. What he found was documented in his academic paper. The inscriptions described a people called the Dropa, a crashed aircraft, peaceful contact with local inhabitants. The content was controversial, but the physical artifacts were real. The inscriptions were there, carved into granite, measurable and photographable. The dating was based on multiple factors. The granite composition matched geological formations in the region. The cave context, including sediment layers and mineral deposits, suggested the discs had been there for at least 10,000 years, possibly 12,000. The carving precision was remarkable. The spiral grooves were uniform, the hieroglyphics consistent across all 716 discs. This wasn't random scratching. This was systematic inscription requiring significant time and effort. In 1974, the Chinese Academy of Sciences took an interest. They examined the discs. They reviewed Professor Tsum Nui's work. Then everything changed. The discs were confiscated. Professor Tsum Nui was exiled from the university in 1965 before the full confiscation after his initial findings became known. By 1974, when the academy conducted their examination, the professor was already gone. The discs followed shortly after. Witness accounts from museum staff and academic colleagues tell a consistent story. The discs were removed from public access. Some report they were destroyed. Others say they were moved to secure storage, location unknown. Ernst Wedgerer, an Austrian engineer, managed to photograph 2 of the discs during a 1974 visit to the Banpo Museum in Sion just before they disappeared. Those photographs are the only remaining visual evidence that the discs existed outside of pre-1974 academic documentation. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The Dropa stones are a hoax, they argue, either a modern fabrication or misidentified natural formations. The inscriptions are pareidolia, seeing patterns where none exist. Professor Tsum Nui's translation was fantasy, not scholarship. The Chinese government confiscated the discs because they were fraudulent artifacts being presented as genuine, damaging China's archaeological credibility. But multiple academic studies were conducted before the confiscation. Beijing University, a prestigious institution, dedicated years to analyzing these artifacts. The discs were physically examined, photographed, catalogued. Museum staff handled them. Visitors saw them on display. These weren't rumors or legends. They were physical objects in institutional custody, and then they vanished. Why would the Chinese government confiscate and destroy artifacts that were simply misidentified rocks? Why exile a university professor for studying them? What did the inscriptions say that required such a complete erasure? And where are the 716 discs now? Destroyed in China. But in Romania, an artifact survived that breaks every rule of ancient metallurgy. Number 7, the aluminum wedge of Aiud. You're working a construction site along the Mureș River near Aiud, Romania. The year is 1974. Your excavator has just unearthed something 10 meters below the surface, buried alongside mastodon bones. It's a wedge-shaped object, 20 centimeters long, 12.5 centimeters wide, 7 centimeters thick. The surface is covered in a thick layer of aluminum oxide. You clean it off. It's aluminum. The problem: aluminum wasn't isolated as a pure metal until 1825. And this object is buried in a geological layer dated to 20,000 years ago. The artifact was discovered alongside 2 mastodon bones during construction work. The bones were sent for analysis and dated to approximately 20,000 years ago using standard paleontological methods. The aluminum wedge was found in the same layer, the same depth, the same geological context. The object was sent to the Archaeological Institute of Cluj-Napoca for analysis. They confirmed it was aluminum, not an alloy, not a naturally occurring mineral. Manufactured aluminum with a composition of 89% aluminum, 6.2% copper, 2.84% silicon, 1.81% zinc, with trace amounts of other metals. The oxide layer covering the surface was approximately 1 to 2 millimeters thick, suggesting significant age. In 1995, Swiss metallurgists conducted additional analysis. They confirmed the manufacturing marks. The object showed evidence of machining, tool marks, precise angles. One end appeared to have been part of a larger mechanism, possibly an axle or lever component. The shape wasn't decorative. It was functional. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The artifact is modern, they argue. Dropped or buried recently, perhaps from aircraft debris or industrial equipment. The mastodon bones are genuinely ancient, but the aluminum wedge is contamination. Modern objects sometimes get mixed into older geological layers through ground disturbance, but the oxide layer tells a different story. Aluminum oxide forms slowly over time through exposure to air and moisture. A 1 to 2 millimeter layer suggests centuries, possibly millennia of exposure. Modern aluminum doesn't develop that thickness of oxidation in decades. The geological context showed no evidence of recent disturbance. The layer was intact, undisturbed, sealed. And aluminum production in 1825 was primitive. The first industrial process for extracting aluminum wasn't developed until 1886 by Charles Martin Hall and Paul Herold. Before that, aluminum was rarer than gold, produced in tiny quantities through expensive chemical processes. Yet this object weighs 2 kilograms. It's a substantial piece of manufactured metal from a time when aluminum shouldn't exist. The artifact currently sits in the History Museum of Transylvania in Cluj-Napoca, displayed but rarely discussed. The museum label acknowledges the mystery but offers no explanation. How did a 2-kilogram aluminum component end up buried 10 meters deep alongside 20,000-year-old mastodon bones? What mechanism did it belong to? Who had the metallurgical knowledge to extract and manufacture aluminum millennia before modern chemistry? Aluminum in 20,000 BCE. But another artifact would push the timeline even further, to an age when Earth itself was still forming. Number 8. The Klerksdorp spheres. You're a miner working the Wonderstone silver mine near Ottosdal, South Africa. Over the years, you've found dozens of them. Metallic spheres, perfectly round or slightly flattened, about 2.5 to 10 centimeters in diameter. Some are smooth. Others have 3 parallel grooves running around the equator. They're beautiful, precise, manufactured looking. The problem, they're coming from a geological layer called the Precambrian Pyrophyllite Formation. That rock is 3 billion years old. The spheres have been found by miners since the 1970s. Dozens of specimens exist, collected from deep mining operations. The pyrophyllite deposits they're found in are dated through radiometric methods, uranium lead dating, rubidium-strontium dating, multiple independent techniques. All confirm the same age, approximately 2.8 to 3 billion years old. The spheres themselves are composed of a nickel-steel alloy or hematite. Some are hollow with a spongy center. The grooved specimens show 3 perfectly parallel lines running around the circumference, evenly spaced, uniform in depth. The precision is remarkable. The spheres are hard, harder than the surrounding rock. They don't scratch easily. In the 1980s, Rolf Marx, curator of the Klerksdorp Museum, conducted tests on several specimens. He placed one sphere on a perfectly flat surface and rotated it on its axis. The sphere maintained perfect balance, no wobble. The grooves were so precisely aligned that the sphere could spin for extended periods without deviation. This level of precision suggests manufacturing, not natural formation. Geologists examined the spheres and the surrounding rock. The pyrophyllite formation showed no evidence of intrusion or contamination. The spheres weren't dropped into cracks or fissures from above. They were embedded in the rock matrix, formed at the same time as the surrounding stone or before it. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The spheres are concretions, they argue. Natural mineral formations that occur when minerals precipitate around a nucleus in sedimentary rock. The grooves are the result of natural fracturing or mineral banding. Concretions can form spherical shapes through chemical processes. The precision is coincidental. But concretions don't form from nickel-steel alloys. They form from minerals like calcite, pyrite, or hematite through precipitation. The metallic composition of some spheres doesn't match natural concretion chemistry, and the grooves are too uniform. Natural fractures create irregular patterns. These grooves are parallel, evenly spaced, consistent across multiple specimens. The spheres exist. They're in museums, private collections, geological institutes. The Klerksdorp Museum displays several. The dating of the rock formation is not disputed. 3 billion years ago, Earth had no oxygen atmosphere, no complex life, no humans, no civilization. Yet these spheres exist, embedded in rock from that era, showing evidence of precision manufacturing. Who manufactured metallic spheres with precision grooves 3 billion years ago? How did they end up embedded in rock formations from the Precambrian era? What civilization existed before life itself? Nuclear evidence in 2500 BCE. Aluminum in 20,000 BCE. Precision spheres in 3 billion BCE. But 2 final artifacts would prove this knowledge was global, not isolated. Number 9. The Koso artifact. You're hiking in the Koso Mountains near Alancha, California, February 1961. You're Wallace Lane and you're with Virginia Maxey and Mike Mikesell, rock collectors looking for geodes. You find one, take it home, cut it open with a diamond saw. Inside, encased in hardened clay and fossil shells, is a manufactured object, a ceramic core, a copper coil. It's a spark plug. The geological analysis suggests the rock formation is between 100,000 and 500,000 years old. The artifact was immediately unusual. The concretion was hard, requiring a diamond saw to cut. Inside, the object was clearly manufactured. Not a natural formation, not a mineral deposit. A mechanical device with distinct components arranged in functional configuration. The finders contacted experts. Paul Willis conducted X-ray analysis in 1961. The internal structure matched a 1920s Champion spark plug. The hexagonal casing, the central electrode, the insulator, the spring mechanism. All present, all in correct positions. The geological context was the problem. The concretion wasn't recent. Fossil shells were embedded in the matrix surrounding the spark plug. The hardness indicated long-term mineralization. Geologists who examined the specimen estimated concretion formation time at a minimum of 100,000 years. Some suggested as much as 500,000 years based on the density and fossil content. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The spark plug is modern, they argue, from the 1920s, as the X-rays confirm. It was dropped or discarded in the California desert. Concretions can form rapidly under certain conditions. Mineral-rich water, the right chemical environment, and a metal object can create a hard shell in decades, not millennia. The fossil shells are from older sediments that got mixed into the newer concretion. The dating is wrong. The artifact is 40 years old, not 500,000, but rapid concretion formation requires specific conditions that weren't present at the Koso mountain site. The hardness of the matrix suggested long-term mineralization, not rapid incrustation. The fossil shells weren't surface contamination. They were embedded throughout the matrix, integrated into the structure. And no evidence of recent formation was found. No modern debris nearby. No indication the area had the chemical conditions for rapid concretion. The artifact itself disappeared after 1969. Only the photographs. Only the documented analysis from 1961. Who manufactured precision spark plugs 500,000 years ago? How did a 1920s-style component end up in a geological formation that predates modern humans? And why did the artifact conveniently disappear after documentation proved its existence? From California to Iraq, 10 artifacts, 10 impossibilities. The pattern is undeniable. Number 10, the Sumerian king list. You're excavating the ancient city of Nippur in southern Iraq, 1906. Your team has just uncovered a clay tablet, cuneiform script covering its surface. It's a list, names and numbers. Kings and their reign lengths. You start translating. The first king ruled for 28,800 years, the second for 36,000 years, the third for 43,200 years. The total for all pre-flood kings, 241,000 years. This isn't mythology. It's a historical record, and it claims human civilization is far older than anyone believes. The tablet is known as the Weld-Blundell Prism, now housed in the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford, but it's not unique. Multiple copies of the Sumerian king list have been found across Mesopotamia, Nippur, Larsa, Ar, all excavated from different sites, all dated to approximately 2100 BCE or earlier, all containing the same information, the same king names, the same impossibly long reign lengths. The consistency suggests these weren't independent inventions, they were copies of an older source. The list divides history into two periods, before the flood and after the flood. The pre-flood section lists 8 kings with reigns totaling 241,000 years. Then comes the flood. After the flood, the reign lengths gradually decrease. The first post-flood kings ruled for thousands of years, then hundreds. Then the numbers drop to normal human lifespans. By the end of the list, you're reading about kings who ruled for 20 or 30 years. Kings whose reigns are confirmed by other archaeological evidence. That's the problem for mainstream historians. Some of the later kings on the list are real. Their reigns are verified by independent sources. Archaeological excavations have found their palaces, their inscriptions, their administrative records. The ancient historian Berossus, writing around 300 BCE, cited the same king list with the same numbers. He had access to Babylonian temple archives that no longer exist. His account matches the clay tablets found 2,000 years later. The mainstream explanation is straightforward. The pre-flood section is mythology, they argue. Symbolic numbers representing divine or legendary rulers. The Sumerians mixed myth with history, as many ancient cultures did. The impossibly long reigns are theological statements, not chronological records. The post-flood kings are real because that's where history begins. But why would the Sumerians carefully preserve mythological numbers across multiple copies spanning centuries? Why would post-flood kings be real while pre-flood kings are fiction? The numbers are too specific for pure symbolism. 28,800 years, 36,000 years, 43,200 years. These aren't round numbers or poetic exaggerations. They're precise figures, recorded consistently across independent sources. The Sumerian king list provides a timeline but accommodates all the previous artifacts. A 241,000-year history explains how civilizations could develop batteries, aerodynamic gliders, analog computers, electrical lighting, and nuclear-level technology. It explains how ancient cartographers could map Antarctica without ice and draw Earth from satellite perspective. It explains why artifacts keep appearing that official history claims are impossible. These 10 artifacts aren't isolated anomalies scattered randomly across time and space. They're evidence of something larger, something that challenges everything we've been taught about human history. The question isn't whether empires lied. The question is what else they're still hiding. If you enjoyed this video, give a like and comment. Subscribe for more.